Palantir's quiet period ends, and today I take a look at how the company's been trading since going public, what the analysts are predicting, and I share my own thoughts as to what factors I think are and will drive the stock price. Stay tuned. Welcome to Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, the channel that has evolved to talk about all the big and not so big companies going public, whether it's by traditional IPO, a SPAC, or even a direct listing. Today we're revisiting Palantir, a company that we've talked a lot about last month as they finally made the move to go public after about 17 years of being private. But before we start, I want to say a big thank you to all the subscribers who have stuck with me as we continue to grow the channel together. And for anyone new here, my name is Kevin, and I want to welcome you to the channel for the first time. If you end up liking the video, I hope you consider joining our community by subscribing. After all, it's free, and it'll make sure you don't miss any information on the company that could turn into the next big thing. And as always, especially on a video like this, please know that I'm not a financial advisor, and while my videos are meant to be informative, they should not be seen as a recommendation for you to take any action on the companies covered. You should always do your own research, or consult with your own financial advisor when making any investment decision. With that said, we talked a lot about Palantir last month, so if you're looking for information on the background of the company and details of its direct listing filing, we're not going to rehash that here today, but you can check out a playlist of videos I made that has all that information. I'll link it for you in the description. Today, let's start off talking about where it's traded since its debut and why I think it's trading there. First of all, a lot of people got caught up on the reference point that Palantir cited as $7.25 and noted how much higher Palantir traded once it opened. As I believe I said in the live stream that we had after our first day of trading, that reference price didn't mean anything to me. Unlike a traditional IPO where we know the institutional investors set an IPO price, which is actually what they pay for each share, with a direct listing, there is no institutional investors or banks pricing the shares. So right off the bat, that price didn't have any substance behind it. Again, because no underwriters actually set that number or bought shares at that price. Now, the week before the trading began, there was a lot of speculation that it could have traded at $11.50, the highest price that it had traded at on the private markets in August. However, that price in August was hit only after word was out that the company was actually going public. Prior to that news, the private shares were trading at a volume-weighted average price of $5.34 in July, and then in August, the month where the filing went public, the average price jumped to $7.31, although it had actually traded as low as $4.17 in that same month, which was a low for 2020. So even when you consider the bump that going public will do for the share price, going up to $11.50 seemed high and would set up the direct listing for being deemed a disappointment. By moving the price down to $7.25, the company almost assured a positive response because, again, considering where it traded privately and even adding a bump for it going public, there was no doubt that it could beat that reference price, and there would be no negative repercussion by setting that price low because no one was actually buying shares at that price, like what would actually happen in a traditional IPO where you could leave money on the table with a low price being set. So why is this important? Because as I also said in the live stream after day one, I felt where the stock actually traded was in the ballpark of where it probably should. And Palantir got a lot of positive publicity for blowing past the reference price. I remember getting a question on if it was overpriced at that time, and I remember saying that it could be priced a little high, but that I really felt it was definitely in a range I would be comfortable with. Unlike some IPOs such as Snowflake's, where I just couldn't justify the price it was at after its first day of trading. Now, after Palantir opened at $10 and spiked to just over $11 on that first day, the stock has settled in a trading range between $9 and $10 since. And I know that a lot of people's expectations would be that the stock would trade higher. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first I want to mention that today was the end of Palantir's quiet period, and I think what you saw today is one of the reasons that I cover them in our weekly IPO This Week episodes. In a day where the entire market was under pressure, Palantir was able to weather the storm and end with a 5% gain, powered on the new market research released by analysts. Knowing a company's quiet period can help you trade the stock better, if only in the short term. I'm going to give you a lot of things to look for when it comes to evaluating Palantir's share price, so hang in there with me, but I did want to tell you that today there were at least 5 analysts that came out with price targets, one at $10, 2 at $11, and 2 at $13. When you add up the targets and average them out, you get an average target price at $11.60 from people who are actually paid to make these predictions. So while on the surface, the targets don't look super attractive, after you look at the closing share price last Friday before the analyst targets came out, you see an expected rise or upside in the stock price by 22%. Now, if you listen to a lot of fans of Palantir who write and make videos about them, they're expecting the price to get to the upper teens or to the mid $20 range relatively soon, and some even say much higher than that. Now, as I always say, I can't see the future, and so my predictions are no better than anyone else's. But based on what I know about the company and the environment we're in, I would be really surprised to see the stock jump into the $20 range in the near future, and not because the analysts have price targets that are lower than that, but because of a lot of underlying factors that I've considered. So to finish up the video, I'm going to go over the factors that I see impacting the company, and by how much, when it comes to where the stock is trading and where it can go. First, I'll tell you the things that, in my opinion, won't significantly impact the price. Beginning with probably the biggest issue that kept coming up before the direct listing was the company governance structure. While there's no question that the structure is not friendly to shareholder power, or that the owners can sell shares and still keep significant control, which is somewhat appalling, I just don't see this being a factor for most of us retail investors. I know I have a lot of interest and personal experience in the stock market, and yet I don't think that I'm so smart that I have a better grasp on how to change the company in a way that grows it better than the founders. So I'm going to knock corporate governance from being a major factor in the price right off the bat. The second factor I think is overrated in influencing share price is the uncertainty over the result of the election. And as many of you know, we don't talk politics on here, but from a pricing consideration, it is a factor due to two popular perceptions. One is that the companies that contract with the government and national defense do better with Republican administrations, and two, that the markets do better overall when there is a Republican president. To the second point, data consistently shows that which party holds the White House doesn't have a major bearing on the markets. And historically, even though Republicans are considered more friendly to business, the markets have actually performed higher during the years that the president is a Democrat. At the end of the day, so many more factors affect the markets in general, I just discount the impact of which party holds the White House. And to the first point about companies doing business with the government in areas of national security, I don't think a data analytics company is at risk for a huge cut from a Biden administration. As I've said before, could their work with ICE be impacted? Yes, but it could also just change in what they're tasked to do in regards to immigration. But business could also pick up with analyzing and tracking virus data in the current pandemic environment. And Palantir was still very much doing business with the government in the Obama-Biden years, with reports of them assisting in finding bin Laden, as well as uncovering fraud. And if you go with the perception that Democrats spend more, I just don't see a company that has proven to be helpful to the government as one that would significantly be affected by a change in the administration. Do I think that some people might be concerned with investing in Palantir because of the election? I do. But again, in my opinion, I just don't see this being a major factor long term either way on who wins the White House. Now let's get to some factors that hold more weight for me. One is financials. At the end of the day, the financials will almost always supersede everything else. There are two big numbers to look at. One is that the company is expecting to reach revenue of over $1 billion for the fiscal year. And the company looks to be on track, or at least close. For the first 6 months of the year, revenue is coming in at over $481 million, and for the trailing 12-month period, revenue is coming in at just over $900 million. Hitting that billion-dollar number has to happen for Palantir, and it looks like it will. The other issue, and maybe the bigger one, is to see if they can start cutting their net losses down. Remember, the company has been around for 17 years without ever having shown a profit, and I also see that sentiment weighing on where the stock is trading. But this also looks to be on track when looking at net losses from continuing operations. For fiscal year 2019, the company reported a loss of $580 million. For the trailing 12-month period, the company is showing a loss down to just over $460 million, and even better, for the first half of the year, the net loss was down to just under $165 million. So the financials are trending positive, but still the price is where it's at. So in this case, financials aren't superseding all, so I have to ask, what else could investors be looking for to drive the price up? One of those things, I believe, is concerns over their customer base. From their filing, they reported to having just 125 total customers, with revenue highly dependent on 3 of them, with those 3 customers representing almost a third of the total revenue. Obviously, this is a risk factor to the price if they were to lose any one of those customers. I also know that what I would like to see is more growth on the commercial side. I like where they sit in the government part of their business, but I really feel there are opportunities on the commercial side, and I'm looking to see more contracts obtained there. They really need to show a growth in that customer base. So this is one thing that I think is holding this price back. Moving up my list of what's impacting the price is concerns about the company's valuation dropping over the years. In 2015, the company was valued in the $20 billion range. This year, prior to the direct listing, the company was valued at about half of that on the private markets when using the share prices we talked about earlier in the video. The question I've asked myself is, even after having considered how going public affects the valuation, what have they done to deserve a much higher valuation than where they were? And right now, I haven't seen anything from them that does that. When I consider what the private shares were trading for and saw it spike to around $11 based on its filing to go public come out, all of the information we talked about was priced in at that time as well. So while I think the current price is within a reasonable range, to drive the price higher, I need to see more. More customers, beating revenue estimates, and lowering losses. That would help me feel comfortable in seeing the upside. But what I feel is the biggest factor affecting the share price right now is the uniqueness of what Palantir did with their direct listing. That was locking up shares. While typical for traditional IPOs, this is certainly not the norm for direct listings. As of right now, 80% of the existing shares aren't able to be traded. And while they followed the lead of the traditional IPOs on locking up shares, they diverted on the length of when those lockups usually expire. For IPOs, most expire at 180 days. However, for Palantir, it will be less than that, by approximately 2 months. For them, the shares will become available on the third business day following the release of fiscal year 2020 earnings. And just so you know, the fiscal year for Palantir ends on December 31st. So when this year's earnings come out a few weeks later, we could see more volatility in the share price when those 80% of shares are finally able to hit the market. And with potentially a glut of shares hitting the market as insiders who've been waiting to capture their gains from when they were buying shares as low as $4.17 in August, to me this is the top consideration I have in the near term for downside pressure on the share price. So that's what I got for you on Palantir. What do you think? Do you agree with my assessment on the stock or not? Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please press that like button and share with your friends or on any of your social media sites and forums you're on. Anything you can do to help me grow the channel will allow me to justify putting more resources into it. And again, if you're new to the channel or just an occasional visitor, we'd love to have you join the community. You just got to press that little red subscribe button. We'd love to have you on board. Until next time, thank you for watching and have a great day.